I'm Tyler, and this is the AntiSocial Network.
Don't look away. Let the fear wash over you.
Hey, T-Dog. What is up in his house?
Welcome to your number one source of internet oddities.
My life is a living hell.
There's just so much beauty in the world, you know?
Here we host conversations with interesting people across the internet.
The God you believe in is not only not good, that God made a world filled with liberals.
Curse of the world, unite! You have nothing to lose but your chains.
You haven't heard of them, but I have.
Perhaps I am cringe, but that makes me free.
Join us every Friday for discussions on culture, entertainment, politics, religion, and whatever happens to catch our fancy that week.
Hell is actually real, and Christianity was right all along. Sorry.
Oh.
The cities are decaying, destroyed by decades of leftist policies. Return to monkey.
You're probably thinking this is some pretty deep stuff, and you're right.
This week we are joined by Siraj Hashmi and Blake Beye, also the latter of which is currently known as public enemy number one by Siraj's Discord community. How's it both going for you both tonight?
Doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good.
I can't believe Blake would speak before me.
Get wrecked,
Grounds for resignation right here.
I know Blake just came back from the city council meeting. How'd that go?
Doing good.
Hold up. Is this recording? Are you guys recording right now?
I am, yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure because I am a boomer beyond belief, and so I would forget to hit record. And since we're on Zoom, I'm definitely looking at my screen and I'm saying that my record button isn't going off.
No, I record off OBS, so I don't need the Zoom recorder.
Oof. Oh man, you nearly gave me a heart attack.
Yeah, it's gonna make the next 4 hours go to waste. What a shame.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess the best way to start is how did you guys end up meeting each other and becoming public enemies against each other?
I don't really remember.
Like you probably know the story better than I do.
I think I don't even remember. I decided I wanted to run for politics, and then somebody in the Discord. Can you guys hear me? Am I coming through? Okay.
Unfortunately, Blake, we can hear you.
Anyway, I made the joke about possibly wanting to run, and I don't remember who said it. It was either you or Jay. Told me I should resign, and I went from there.
Yeah, it never stopped. Basically, we wanted to take the resistance position that anytime Blake did something, whether good or bad, we would basically behave like. Do you know Scott Dworkin, who is like one of these resistance libs on Twitter? Like every single tweet he'd post, it would basically he would put out like some hyperbolic statement, and then he said retweet if you think Trump should resign, and basically that's kind of the inspiration that I'm taking in all of this.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And then when you get guys like Glenn Greenwald and get them in on it, it's pretty funny.
Glenn Greenwald joined in this.
That was completely improvisational.
Oh, I believe it.
Like we didn't, I wanted to somehow get a way to troll you. And the fact that that Greenwald bought into it is just like, yeah, he should totally resign. He's getting kickbacks and everything.
That was funny. I will admit.
The list of corruption just grows and grows for Blake. He may not survive the year or the day, for that matter. Who knows?
That's true.
I guess just to kind of start out with, Siraj, can you kind of describe what it is all you do online? Because you've been really kind of blowing up in the past year and a half or so.
So this is weird. I don't know how this all happened. It is basically I got my start in political journalism, and before that I was in sports journalism. So I always had it in my vision ever since I got into media is that I wanted to like go on ESPN. I wanted to, I love sports. I wanted to talk about sports all day. And then I started working for a couple of different startups, and I was like, this is oddly repetitive and not really fun. And even if you like work your way up, like at the end of the day, you're still talking about the same thing over and over again. So around the 2014 midterms, when I was working for one particular startup, I basically was like, let's try covering the midterm elections in 2014. And I was like, this is actually not too bad. I'm starting to learn a little bit more. I got hired by Sirius XM Radio as an associate producer for the POTUS channel, which is their supposedly nonpartisan political channel. But anyone with two brain cells knows that they definitely skew to the left, especially after I left. Their main flagship program was Chris Cuomo. So that tells you everything right there. But when I was there, the one host that I did produce for, he was probably more right-leaning, a little bit more libertarian. Guy from Maine, his name's Tim Farley. So I was a producer for the morning briefing with Tim Farley for about 2 years. And what was even more wild was like, as I was working there, I was seeing everything with respect to the 2016 election unfold firsthand, because I would run into at the same time I was working at SiriusXM, guess who's working across the hall from me? Steve Bannon of Breitbart, the next guy who basically became the head of the executive chairman of the Trump campaign, and then the chief strategist in the White House. So I'm like seeing all this stuff happen in real time. And as soon as he got picked up by the Trump campaign, I'm just like, holy shit, this is the guy that they're all dunking on. Like, this is who the left wing media absolutely hates. Like, it was wild.
What was your read on him before?
What's that?
What was your read on him before he became public enemy number one?
He was a nice guy. Like, I at that time in the morning, like I was there. I was get up at 3:30 in the morning, which to Blake would seem like, holy shit, this is the completely different Siraj, because I'm known for getting up at 2 p.m. every single day. So I used to get up at 3:30 in the morning to be there by 5 a.m. So I'd have to drive into DC. And if you're familiar with DC traffic, Tyler, I don't know if you've been in that area or if you're based in that area, but it's obviously mental, and getting into the city is a nightmare. I could get into the city from Virginia at 4 o'clock in the 4:30 in the morning. I could get there in like 15 minutes, which is because I'd be going 90 on George W. Parkway. So, but getting back to the point, Steve Bannon, he was a nice guy, because in the Sirius XM hallways, like it was barren. There wasn't anybody there. So like anytime you walk by anyone, obviously you have to acknowledge their existence. You just like, hey, how you doing? Like, good morning, that kind of thing. And he'll always say it back. Like, he never was an asshole to me. So it was just fascinating to see all these stories come out about him afterwards, and how much people who he worked with hated him, or like knew how cutthroat he was.
Was that before or concurrent with the Ben Shapiro leaving Breitbart fiasco?
It was around the same time, yeah.
Okay, because I know
which is odd. It's odd to think about, because now I'm really I didn't like Ben Shapiro at all when I was back in those early days, but now he and I are really friendly to each other, and it's just this is not like the media characterization of some people like Ben Shapiro is just out of this world crazy. It really is nuts how the media can just completely tar and feather others with respect to their reputation. And it honestly, I never thought I'd be in this position ever.
What about Cuomo? Did you ever interact with him at SiriusXM?
No, so Cuomo was there after I left. I'd say the biggest names that I worked with, so people that have kind of blown up a little bit now. So Michael Smerconish was one. He was kind of a big program there, as well as what's his name? Oh, Dr. Jason Johnson, who's now at MSNBC. And he and I were actually friends and friendly. And then I guess politics just sort of muddied the waters, and we haven't spoken in a while.
Where did you go from SiriusXM then?
So after that, I got hired by the Examiner. So in September 2016, I got hired by the Examiner, and I was there until March of 2021. So.
Did you leave with them on good terms, or what was leaving them like?
So I left on my own volition. To say it was good terms, I mean, yeah, I'm still friends with a lot of people there. I still think management probably does not feel the same way about me because I was a big headache to them, particularly the editor-in-chief. I mean, this story I've told many times, and Blake might know about it, but when I got canceled by Fox News I wouldn't say canceled, but when Fox News wrote about me, you remember in 2020 when Vince Vaughn hung out with Donald Trump at the National College Football Championship?
Mm-hmm.
I just tweeted out one of the videos of Vince Vaughn hanging out with Trump. And I was like, ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you Vince Vaughn is canceled. Fox News, some writer at foxnews.com took that tweet in earnest, not actually checking my bio to see it actually at the Washington Examiner, one of the conservative publications that's actually a competitor to foxnews.com, and also a place where they often get writers and commentators to join their television programming, which I have done dozens of times before this episode happened. It was even more surreal when I woke up the next morning after that game and to find that I'm flooded with people saying, like, basically, wishing me death. And again, this is January 2020, just 2 months before COVID. And well, we're still in COVID, but it's 2 months before the lockdowns. When this happened, I basically went and checked why was my name like getting dragged through the mud here, and I checked to see that, like, oh, Fox News took this entire tweet, this sarcastic tweet, in earnest, and it just sort of spiraled out from there, in the sense that I had too much fun with it, and it rubbed a lot of the management the wrong way because I had way too much fun with it. But basically, here's the long and short of it. Fox News decided to use that tweet to anchor 2 different segments on their television programming, Outnumbered and Outnumbered Over Time, and basically say that this guy is leading liberal cancel culture against Vince Vaughn. And in order to get them to stop using my tweet, basically they put it on like the giant, television screen that they have in their studio. There's my name, Siraj Hashmi. It's like, I regret to inform you Vince Vaughn is canceled. I changed my name to Sharia now instead of Siraj Hashmi, so that Fox News would stop using my tweet. And I wouldn't say correlation equals causation, but they stopped using my tweet. And what makes it better is that it gave the editor-in-chief at the Examiner a heart attack, and he pulled me into his office and just absolutely reprimanded me, and I'm like dying laughing the entire time. He's like, you think this is funny? Like, this is a very serious British man. It's like, you think this is funny? I'm like, yes, this is the funniest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And yeah, that was probably one of the funniest things that's ever happened still.
Oh my Lord. That is...
Story never gets old, Siraj.
It really doesn't.
So when you left the Examiner, did you start doing independent journalism, or would you say you just kind of put that behind you as it fell out of love with the trade?
So it's sort of shifted to being just sort of an independent content creator and journalist, and so I do the podcast with Jay, Habibi Power Hour. People wanted me to continue doing the podcast I did with the Examiner, but sort of make it my own. And it was more of a serious podcast in which I actually interviewed people who, were journalists, politicians, policy wonks, thought leaders, that kind of thing, pundits. And, I just didn't really have a passion for it. It just didn't gain a whole lot of traction. Yeah, it was, it was cool, but I mean, they wanted to change it into something it was not. Basically, they wanted to um, just take all editorial control away from me. And I just wasn't about that. So I used that as my cue to be like, appreciate everything, but I'm gonna go my separate way.
So did you start up a Substack and stuff like that? Like, what the Barry Weiss path then, or?
Yeah, I mean, like I started one, but I never really like found my stride because, like one of the things that I focus on specifically is video, not writing. So it just, my skill set is better suited for video. And so I just didn't really, the only time I really write anything is when I'm putting the list together. And even then I'm sort of all over the place because I can't really figure out which is like the best platform to do it on. Constantly testing things out and trying stuff and, revamping stuff. And like the one thing that I'm consistent about is that I'm inconsistent.
Well, you are on like 69 platforms, so.
That is true. And I'm trying to consolidate that, but it, it doesn't get any easier, right?
Speaking of the list, has Blake wound up on it yet?
No. And I feel like it would get to his head if I did put him on the list. So I'm just gonna have to wait on that.
I was trying there for a while, but then I just gave up.
Here's the thing. If you try to get on the list, it becomes harder to get on the list.
Yep,
and the reason for that is because the list works when people are unintentionally when people are intentionally trying to get on it, it's you have to unintentionally get it. You just have to tweet at Ernest as you usually do. And if you have a really spicy hot take and you're not expecting to get really any pushback on it, and you end up getting a lot of pushback and you getting ratio, usually that's the time when you get listed.
Go ahead,
I'm not a blue check yet, so my ranking is pretty far to the bottom.
Yeah, so like the way the list works is that you need to meet a certain threshold. Blue check obviously lowers the threshold and makes it easier for you to get on it. But as far as, you have to have a high enough engagement, a really, really spicy take. And Blake, you're just not giving me the goods, man.
Oh well.
You're not giving me the goods.
Blake, what's the line from Casablanca? Blake's just a poor, corrupt politician. He's not there yet.
Essentially.
100%.
So, how long have you been doing the list at this point? Because that's kind of become your, I guess, the thing you're most famous for at the moment, at least on Twitter.
So that I've done since December 2019. It started because of George and Kellyanne Conway. Because they were dunking on each other, specifically George dunking on Kellyanne. And it was one of those moments where you're like, oh, there's no way that this would ever fly. If basically the premise of the tweet that led to the moment in which I was like, oh, I need to take away George Conway's phone, was Kellyanne tweeted out. This was during the first Trump impeachment saga. So it was when, and oddly enough, almost everything always circles back to like Biden in Ukraine. But Kellyanne posted a video of Joe Biden before he became the nominee about how, he said something crazy, some Joe Bidenism, right? Some gaffe.
Oh, man.
And Kellyanne tweeted out something along the lines of, we need Ukraine's help to beat this guy. And George Conway quote tweeted Kellyanne saying, your boss apparently thought so. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what their marital status is. I don't know if they're still together, but like, if they're still together, this should not be allowed. I mean, like, this is just foul. Like, it is out of step. Is out of pocket, really. I was like, George, I need to take your phone away. And basically I started like a 5-person power ranking of people who need their phones taken away. Had George Conway at 1, Donald Trump at 2, because he always needed his phone taken away. I think I had...
You were on the list too.
I was on the list. I was Charlie Kirk, I think, at 3, me at number 4. I think I had my colleague at the Examiner, Seth Mandel, who I like to dunk on from time to time in tees. And I acted like it was something that always existed. You know, kind of like how sports power rankings work. And I just started doing it every day. But I didn't tag anyone in the first couple of lists. I only started tagging them maybe on like the 3rd or 4th list. So that's like I started doing it on a Monday. By Thursday, I was starting to tag them. By Friday, I expanded from 5 to 10 because people were like, you should just first of all, at them, you coward. And then secondly, you should expand this from 5 to 10. And I started doing it every day. I did it every day for like 3 or 4 months until COVID lockdowns hit. And everybody went online and everybody lost their mind. I was like, there's no way I can keep up with all this crazy. So I switched it from daily to, and basically started a Patreon, then a Substack, then a Locals, and now I'm just kind of out there in the ether.
Is that is the Patreon and Substack for the list comparable to the one for Habibi Bros at the moment?
It was. I'm trying to whittle those down and focus on just one platform. So I'd say if you wanted to follow any of the content I do with respect to the list, I would just go to our Locals. So it's habibibros.locals.com for anyone who wants to check that out.
So what has the expansion of the Habibi Bros community been like since that started? When did you start the podcast?
So we started a podcast in April of 2020. So Jay and I were just kind of dicking around and trying to figure out what to do because we just had so much time on our hands. And basically we just didn't, we just were like, let's just do a live stream. We did a live stream and it gained some pretty decent traction. So we just kept going and we went from Instagram to YouTube. And then about a year later, Rumble approached us and wanted to have us on, and so we did a deal with Rumble, and here we are.
And you just announced just recently that you got brought onto Rumble as their one of their content coordinators. How'd that come about?
So I am the head of creative partnerships at Rumble. That's my actual full-time job. What I do is basically I'm heading up the content creator program and bringing creators on, recruiting them, getting them onboarded, provide them with IT support, and basically just kind of, I'm like the face that content creators deal with when they're trying to get onto Rumble. So if they have any issues, obviously they would come to me. It came about really when I just hung out with the CEO, Chris Pavlovsky, and we just hung out, and I just identified a bunch of areas where he needed assistance, and I just offered my services, and he's like, I love it, and brought me on.
Is it unusual for a website like that to have such a public face? Because YouTube is very infamous for not having any public faces where you can go for help.
I don't know. I think it's slightly different. I mean, YouTube gets a lot of flack for how they've dealt with content moderation and how they've dealt with content creators. And I think this is somewhat of an alternative approach, because when you deal with content creators, you almost have to speak in their language, because the one thing that they focus on the most is, okay, what video am I going to put out today? What podcast am I going to put out today? Their chief concern is, what are they going to put out for public consumption for their audience? And you need sort of a content creator perspective to fully understand, sort of the issues that they go through. And so I have, through my own struggles, being a boomer that I am, I've obviously dealt with and troubleshooted a lot on my end, both live streaming and doing pre-recorded video. And so I've kind of been able to lend my expertise on that end for a number of different creators on our platform, and also sort of just give them feedback on what they're doing well and what they could be doing better.
How do they prioritize content curation? Because I know the other, other than Rumble, the only other big YouTube rival at the moment is BitChute, and BitChute is useful, but it's also a website that's kind of got developed a really wonky reputation because at any point you can turn on the BitChute's front page, and the top 5 videos may involve anything from the Jewish question to UFOs and stuff like that. How does the site balance free speech needs with running a presentable website?
Sure. So one of the things that so Rumble doesn't really have an algorithm right now. They don't have. I would say their stuff's more curated. They have like a homepage editor, that kind of thing, and basically, I mean, usually they have a terms of service just like every other website. People think they could just allow everything under the sun. That's not possible, because obviously there's far more evil and menacing content out there. Like, so long as you're not posting pornography or like actual literal violence, then you're good. You can say whatever you want. Of course, we don't. When it comes to like hate speech, that's obviously become an area of concern. Like, as long as you're not like advocating for the killing of a specific group of people, you're good. You don't have to worry.
How you doing down there, Blake? You've been uncharacteristically quiet.
Oh, I'm just listening to the conversations because some of this I hadn't heard before. So, yeah, I'm just listening in. No big deal.
Yeah, as a public person, I kind of keep to myself a little bit. So.
True. I mean, you guys seem to be. You guys are friends, though.
Yeah. But I just don't like volunteer this information even with my friends.
Sure. Is there stuff?
Like say things. Huh?
Is there stuff here you don't want in the recording then, or?
Huh?
You said that there's things you don't want that are private. You don't.
No. This is fine. This is nothing.
Okay. Just want to make sure that's we're not pushing anything that you don't want.
Yeah. No, I'm not giving away the sensitive material. This is just I'm telling you things from my perspective.
Sure, but
how's Ernie doing, brother?
What's that?
He's good.
Good.
He's chasing my dog. He's chasing after a treat ball right now.
I was gonna say, is he about at the moment?
Go check. Let me go check.
Oh, Ernie. He's a good dog. I like Ernie.
Oh, Ernie is the best.
Yeah, sorry, I was cutting it really razor close tonight.
Oh no, you were fine.
We went kind of long today, so, but that's okay. We got a lot of stuff done. So,
what are you focusing on at the moment?
Well, today we voted on getting the city a new backhoe. They've been desperately needing one for a while. Let's see, what else did we do? There's this little mundane projects like fixing streets and all that stuff. I mean, it's kind of the boring part of government, but I still enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it was a good, productive meeting. We got a lot done. Probably spent more money than I would have liked to, but you got to do what you got to do right now. So we're part of this Kansas power pool. And so the director for that came in and talked to us about how our city's doing with electricity, and we're down a little bit, but I think we've got some progress coming. So, but that's about as exciting as the meeting was tonight. So
we have an Ernie signing. How did you get Ernie?
How did I get
my wife adopted him.
Okay. How long have you had him now?
Almost 10 years.
Really? That's an old. He doesn't look that old, but.
Yeah, no, he consistently looks like a puppy, which is great. He's 9. He turns 10 in July. But when my wife graduated from law school and passed the bar, one of my gifts to her was giving her a dog.
Where'd the name come from?
My wife named him.
That's fair. I was curious if it was anything specific, but
no, she just spent time thinking about good names, and she settled on Ernie.
Oh, there you go.
The Urn, President Urn.
Isn't it?
So I guess just we're down to the last couple minutes of the conversation of the Zoom call, but what are you hoping that your kind of direction you're going to move into in terms of like where you want to go with Rumble, where you want to go with journalism, where are you hoping things go in general?
So I think right now the fight that's being had is mainly online, and with the massive amount of censorship that's being done and deplatforming and almost depersoning people because big tech is like flexing its muscles and trying to censor people that they don't like, who are challenging the narrative. Everything's misinformation, everything's a conspiracy theory, and that's almost like the not even just a big brother approach to how they're taking on the internet. That's more like a parental approach, where they think that we, who are fully grown adults out there on the internet, can't think for ourselves, and we need big daddy, big tech to basically decide what's good for us and what's not. I feel like that's incredibly infantilizing. It's incredibly what's the word I'm looking for? Patronizing, because they assume that we, any consumer, any audience, any viewer of content can't think for themselves, and that they need to be steered in the right direction so that they can't think dangerous thoughts. So it's I think right now the one fight that I think I could get involved in was to combat against that sort of effort within big tech. And I think it's obviously ironic, considering how people view the list specifically as a mean. They think it's like, particularly on the right, they think it's like a means of censorship. But obviously it's never been about that. It's always been saving people from themselves. And if anything, starts a discussion about certain tweets. Like, people try to act like I have any power if that person gets suspended. Of course the list works, but let's get real here. It's not like I'm the one who's specifically calling for this person to get banned.
Well, I think a perfect example of that is that tweet that this lady put out earlier today about that Fox News journalist. Right. That's ridiculous. You don't ever say anything like that.
Right. There are people who are going to say that always, and I'm of the position where it is a dumb take and a dumb position to have, but I'm not going to advocate for that person to be deplatformed. It's just more of a point and laugh at that person because that is such a dumb position. And I felt, for me, journalism wasn't really it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. There's a lot less power for I wouldn't say power. I would say people have taken power. Journalists have taken power into their own hands and used it for nefarious purposes. And I'm just not about that. I just don't I care about the truth, but I'm not in it for power. And that's what the journalism industry has become. These are almost wannabe dictators in some way, shape, or form, and they just kind of masquerade themselves as journalists, but they're activists, and a lot of them are just authoritarians. So I figured it's now's as good a time as any to kind of get into the fight of fighting for a free and open internet. And so that's kind of how I view myself.
How much of the power mongering did you see from the inside when you were still working at the Examiner and Sirius?
Well, it's more so not the inside of that. It's more so seeing other people within the industry, your peers, people who, if you know the truth, people are basically making the story about themselves or elevating their platforms. They're turning themselves into a brand. I was making myself a brand based on people's bad tweets, and that was really just organic. It wasn't like I was trying to make myself part of the story here. You have your Jim Acostas, you have your Michelle Sindors, you have your Brian Karams, all of them are trying to make it about themselves rather than actually report on the story. And that's kind of when I started to fall out with journalism a bit.
It's kind of the opposite of what Habibi Bros does on a weekly basis. I mean, that's just like not a complete farce, but it's a lark at the very least. It's like taking the piss out of it.
Yeah, and Jay and I dunk on the media all the time, and it's it's fun to do, but I think it's mostly important to try to cut through some of the BS that you're seeing in the overarching narratives. And we're not right 100% of the time, essentially, but we try to be. It's not like we're bad actors. And honestly, I really enjoy doing it with Jay because he's a good guy, he's a good friend. And the dude basically made me piss my pants laughing. He's that funny.
Well, I mean, nowadays
I was gonna say I would agree with that. It's like a yin and yang type of relationship you see on Habibi Bros, at least just from the audience perspective. And yeah, it's hilarious as hell watching you guys go at it. Except when your shirt's come off, that's just disturbing. But
what was that, Blake? I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say I kind of missed the parts in the recent podcast where the explanation of why the shirts were coming off. What was going on there?
We do that specifically to torture anyone who watches us. Particularly people like because he hates it so much. But he basically just wishes it into existence, so we kind of have no choice but to take our shirts off.
Man, Blake, you're making the world worse. Why are you doing this?
Probably just resign.
Well, the problem is if you resign, then then the hunt's off, and there's no fun. What's the point of that?
What's gonna happen if I resign? What's everybody gonna do? Tell me to go get a job? Well, I already have a job.
And we'll tell you to resign from that one too.
Oh God.
It's gonna be like a Dankula situation. They're just gonna hunt you to the ends of the earth. There's like
you know what's actually funny about that? My boss saw one of Fuzzy's tweets about me resigning, and he said, "So are they trying to tell you to resign from Ford?" And I said, "No, they're trying to get me to resign from city council." And he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, you should resign." And just walked away. I'm not even joking. I was dying laughing.
Too good.
Well, there's no sport in it unless they earn it. So the Habibi community, you have to earn his resignation. You can't just expect it. You got to make it. You got to make it worth it. And when it actually happens, then it'll be worth it.
That's right.
But yeah, I guess just to kind of wrap up, Siraj, do you want to kind of shout out your stuff, and Blake, do you want to shout out your social media stuff?
Sure.
Where can people find you guys?
Blake.
You want me to go first? I'll go
Yeah.
first since I went first earlier. You can find me at Real Blake Beye on Twitter or at Real Blake Beye Blake Beye on Instagram. I just have 2 platforms, not 69 like Siraj does. So
You'll get there one day, Blake. I have faith in you.
Essentially.
100%. Now you can find me on Twitter at Siraj Hashmi. Go hit up our Rumble channel, Habibi Power Hour. And then we're live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. East. Sometimes we'll bring on guests for other episodes, but we'll let you know about that. And if you want to hang out with us, we've got 2 places. Our locals community, habibibros.locals.com, and then the Habibi Discord server where you can basically be a part of the conversation throughout.
Does Rumble do live streams?
We do.
Okay, so there's no reason not to watch it on Rumble then, as opposed to YouTube.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
All right. Well, good to have you both, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Tyler.
Have a good night. The AntiSocial Network is a Groupthink Productions and cultural review podcast. Editing, hosting, and producing are by Tyler Hummel, art by Crystal Cali, and original music is composed by Guap Squad Gang and Melissa Lafira. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment below and tell us anyone you think would be a good guest for the show. Thank you for listening.